A huge green arrow and 3 free transfers going into game week 11, but still some questions to be asked, like whether we should be selling Semenyo and buying Man City's Cherki. So in today's video, we're going to go through my transfer plans and importantly look at some of those key players that we got to consider selling and buying. So as always, if you look forward to today's video, make sure to drop a like and of course hit that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get to today's video. So first up, if we take a look at my game week 10 review so far, of course, we still have the Monday night game between Sunderland and Everton, but it's been a good game week. 82 points and a green arrow from 1.1 million to 774,000, give or take. So it's been a really good game week. Unless anything crazy happens, I should stay in the top 1 million for the first time this season, which will be fantastic. Now, I made 3 transfers. I got to the holy land of 5 free transfers in game week 10. And like I said, I had to use 3 of them, but I'm quite glad that I did. I ended up sending Tarkowski to Richards as a bit of a cash cow move. And I'm really glad that I did because Crystal Palace defensively still looking solid. The ownership's pretty big as well, with a lot of people owning, of course, Munoz and Lacroix alongside Richards. So really glad to have gone for Chris Richards and free up 1 million to enable the other moves of selling Reinders to Ismail Assar. Now, even though Ismail Assar, of course, blanked, he had a real big opportunity one-on-one, and Reinders, of course, was benched. Now, it sounds like Reinders has some sort of niggle, but my concern would be how fantastic Man City did look with Foden and Cherki in that home fixture. I think Reinders will definitely get game time, but we know now that Reinders is a serious rotation risk in that team. Ismail Assar, we know long-term, is a fixed minutes pick. So really happy with that move. And then, of course, Pedro to Mateta, which I'm delighted with the move. But, of course, on reflection, ended up not really delivering any returns there because Pedro got the goal and bonus, Mateta got the goal and bonus. But who am I more happy to own long-term? 100% Mateta in this situation. I know Pedro had big opportunities against Spurs, but how bad were Spurs in general? So 82 points, big decisions here in terms of double Arsenal in that wild card coming in clutch, 18 points between them. Anderson obviously being injury free was huge, that 6-pointer. Bruno with the assist and Gyökeres getting that goal but going off at half time, and one to monitor now because if he is going to be out for game week 11 with that game away against Sunderland, I start to ask the question whether really I got to move him on in this team, as I won't have triple Arsenal, which every other manager effectively will have. And then, of course, Erling Haaland doing Erling Haaland things as always. So, good game week. Bench looking a little bit ropey right now. A little bit of a concern about Semenyo with the numbers that he's dropped over the last few weeks. And I've still got Ndai to play away against Sunderland. So, let's take a look at my team and a few transfers that I am considering, and let me know in the comment section how many points did you score in game week 10. So previewing game week 11 and how my team is currently looking before any transfers, of course. We got 0.6 million in the bank and 3 free transfers. So in a pretty strong position with the actual squad. So we've got to ask ourselves, going into a game week 11, first and foremost, how does the actual week look? Are there any desperate sells in the team? Well, when we take a look at the actual breakdown, double Arsenal defence, I'm just delighted with. Raya and Gabriel. Yes, I would like Timber in there alongside Gabriel as the optimal move, but do I see enough right now to be getting rid of Raya to a goalkeeper that really isn't available in the game right now? I really don't think there is a goalkeeper that is offering incredible value. And even though 5.5 million when I bought Raya is a lot of money, I'm just guaranteeing myself almost a clean sheet every game. If it isn't every game, I'm getting it 8 times out of 10, it seems right now. Yes, we aren't getting the save points, but with the squad right now, I don't think I need to take the money out of the goalkeeper area to invest in the rest of the team. So I'm content with how it looks until maybe a wild card in the future, or if I'm sat with 5 free transfers going into African Cup of Nations and I can almost do a mini wild card. I'm just kind of delighted with how that's fell right now. Richards at home against Brighton, a reason why I brought him in. He is playable for the next 4 game weeks, and now that he's past fit, he is great. However, we've got to monitor European football. The big caveat that I mentioned when I bought in my triple Crystal Palace was that the schedule is ridiculous for them. So whereas Richards for me is just really good long term, somebody looking at Ismail Assar and Mateta, I will be keeping an eye on, because if fatigue does start to creep up in this Crystal Palace team, I'm not wedded towards them. I am more than happy to sell them at any given moment. So that looks perfectly fine. And Anderson away against Everton, who have actually been struggling at home in some of their games, more than happy to play that one, to be honest with you. Now, take a look at the midfielders. I mean, Semenyo away against Aston Villa. We're going to have a section in a minute, really deep diving on him, so stick around for that one. Ismail Assar at home against Brighton, perfectly fine. Bruno Fernandes away against Spurs, a Spurs team that seemingly cannot play well at home. Yes, I do think Mbeumo long-term is the play, but do I see enough in Man United or Bruno to be selling them against this Spurs team who was so poor against Chelsea? Not really. So I'm happy to stick with Bruno. And then Dye, of course, I got a monitor Monday night. If he does get through past fit, I see no reason for me to sell him at home against Fulham. It's a good enough fixture. Even though he does play up against Anderson, is what it is. Then, of course, the front three. I mean, there's no conversation to be had about Haaland and Mateta. We're sticking with those boys. But Gyökeres is going to be the big one. I should have put a yellow flag on him right now, but he, of course, is in injury doubt going into the weekend. The big news, of course, is that we will have Champions League football. We should get a bit more information exactly what is going to happen there. If Arteta comes out and says he was touch and go for the Champions League game, he'll be available for the weekend. Happy days. But if we are going into the game week 11 with Gyökeres and major doubt and my backup being Senesi, I think it's fine. I probably will get a goal conceded by Senesi and maybe a defensive contribution point or two, of course. Then I'm fine with that. But of course, with 3 free transfers available, I do need to ask myself, should I maybe get rid of Gyökeres, downgrade it, put the money in the midfield? A question that needs to be asked, but one that I can't really decide right now. However, when we do my future transfer plans later on in this video, I will deep dive into some Gyökeres replacements if we do get the worst case scenario that he is going to be ruled out for game week 11. So 3 free transfers. Really good spot to be in, but of course with some outstanding performances like Cherki and a bit of an underwhelming performance by Semenyo, I just want to take a look to see whether actually there is an opportunity to be a bit more different in the next few weeks. Now take a look at some midfielders that are actually quite appealing going into game week 11 onwards. I have to apologise. Aesthetically, this is not a nice slide, but honestly, the stats is kind of what I want to look at and the fixtures, and there's not really anything else. So I do apologise. It's not aesthetically very pleasing. So the big question right now is, 1, is Cherki actually a viable pick? Is Foden providing value? Is Semenyo actually starting to dwindle and possibly be a bit of a concern for us? And of course, are defensive midfielders in the shape of Rice and Caicedo actually the route that we want to go down? Because there is a lot of buys going into game week 11, and there's actually been a trickle of consistent buys for both of these over the past few game weeks as well. So first up, let's just address the Semenyo situation, because over the last couple of game weeks, it hasn't been pleasant viewing from him. We haven't necessarily seen the numbers that we were conditioned to in the opening 8 game weeks as an example, where he has just been phenomenal as a pick. Now, when we take a look at the numbers over the course of the season, you can see an expected goal involvement of 0.43 per 90 minutes. And you can see a non-pen expected goal involvement of 0.35. So, of course, he has actually taken a penalty for Bournemouth. When we look at the actual non-pen expected goal involvement, I actually was thinking it would be a bit higher. The fact that we are almost just treating Semenyo as an essential pick, almost the same as Erling Haaland, I would anticipate these numbers to be slightly higher. So I'm trying to ask myself the question, take out the thought of Semenyo being essential, is he still great value? And of course, if you bought him at a cheaper price point, then kind of don't think about him as an 8 million option. You bought him maybe closer to 7, and that is really the value that you bought him at. So when we look at the fixtures coming up for Bournemouth, Villa away, which is proving to be a bit of a mixed game. We don't really know what kind of Villa we are getting, but we got to understand that will be off the back of European football for Aston Villa. The consistent thing for this is that Bournemouth don't play European football, so they are just going to be fresh every single Premier League game. Then they've got West Ham, which maybe they're going to turn a tide with Nuno, but still a home game against West Ham you can't really look at and say is a bad fixture. Then Sunderland, Everton, Chelsea and Man United. So I would make the argument the fixtures are still good enough to be keeping Semenyo. So I think the answer is going to be sell Semenyo if you really have a player that you want to buy. And hopefully this section will conclude whether there is one or not. So firstly, Cherki, really impressive in game week 10. I think we all know he is a bit of a baller. The problem with Cherki, and something that applied to Reinders, why a lot of people sold him, is we cannot guarantee those minutes. Now, I do think in a way, Champions League football may lend towards understanding what Cherki's minutes are going to be like in the Premier League, because if he's not playing against Dortmund midweek, we would anticipate him to play on the weekend. But we have to obviously remember there is lots and lots of depth in that Man City squad. And when we look at the fixtures coming up, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, then the really nice run from game week 13. I'm going to include Foden in this conversation. I wouldn't be buying Cherki and Foden right now. Let the next 2 game weeks pan out. Let Rodri return into the squad. Let Reinders be fully fit and available. Maybe get a bit of an understanding of whether one of those two is still the go-to guy. And then in game week 13, where you're going to want him for this fixture run, we can understand who to complement alongside Erling Haaland. I haven't seen enough right now to do Semenyo to any of these Man City boys. Now, I've put Saka and both Declan Rice in there as a bit of an Arsenal comparison because Rice is honestly ticking under the radar really nicely as a 6.8 million option. Of course, we've had a few price rises recently. He was cheaper originally. 0.6 expected goal involvement for Saka, but when we look at the non-pen, 0.48. And again, we still have no clarification whether he or Enquiries is the penalty taker for Arsenal. Declan Rice is 0.33, of course, doesn't take penalties. So he's ticking over really nicely. Of course, Bukayo Saka is the better pick, but for those that can't get to him, I would say to you, I think Rice does tick over really nicely. Does hit defensive contributions, not at the level of Caicedo that we have on the list here. Rice is about 9.6 per 90 minutes. Caicedo is about 13.6. So Caicedo's defensive contributions are more regular, but I think that's because Arsenal literally suffocate teams and sometimes they just dominate all spells of the games, and it means Rice doesn't have to do all of the defensive work at times. So for me, I still think Saka is a better pick over Rice, but we do have to have Declan Rice in the back of our minds. Would I do Semenyo to Rice this week? No. But the fixtures for Arsenal consistently are decent. I do believe that. Finally, Caicedo. Loads of people buying him. For me, he just isn't a viable pick. 0.13 expected goal involvement per 90 minutes. Yes, he's had some worldies. Yes, he has picked up a few assists. Yes, I'm a Chelsea fan. Yes, I love Caicedo. But do I think he is a pick? Well, it's 6 million. He does offer some value. However, I still truly believe someone like a Minter at 6 million is more exciting than that of Caicedo. So to conclude, I still think Semenyo's a hold for now, but we've got to take away the thought process of him being an absolute essential pick in our teams. Let the next few weeks happen, maybe until we get to game week 13, then we reassess and understand whether we need to distribute these funds into some Man City options in game week 13. So if we take a look at my game week 11 transfer plans, a reminder, I got 3 free transfers, 0.6 million in the bank, a yellow flag on Enquiries, but otherwise the team is looking pretty good going into this game week as previously discussed. Now the thing that I do need to touch on quickly is the chip availability. Now I've used my wildcard, but I still have my free hit, my triple captain and my bench boost. So firstly, in terms of the triple captain, I just see no world where I'm not going to be going for Erling Haaland. And game week 13 at home against Leeds is the one that I currently have bookmarked as a pick. Now, of course, things could change between now and then. Maybe off the back of the Newcastle game, we see a bit of fatigue with Erling Haaland and Marmoush plays the Leeds game. So I'm keeping it in my back pocket, knowing that I've got different opportunities. Game week 15 at home against Sunderland. If I get to a world for some reason where I own Mo Salah, there will be a time when Mo Salah before African Cup of Nations is a pick. But right now, triple captain Haaland, 13-15 is my plan. Free hit, literally no idea. And the reason being is we still don't know whether there could be a blank or a double game week off the back of the Carabao Cup progression for Crystal Palace. So keeping free hit massively open. The one thing that I know I really want to use in the next few weeks is going to be my bench boost. I think I'm in a position right now where I really have tied my hands behind my back because I can't make truly aggressive moves, like for example, downgrading Enquiries to Mark Gui and then using those funds to upgrade the rest of my team, unless I just accept that I'm going to have one player that does not play on my bench boost. So the plan right now is to try to get myself to game week 12, as you can see here, and try to play my bench boost. The reason being is Dubravka at home against Chelsea. I can see Burnley frustrating Chelsea, I'm going to be honest with you. Rodon at home against Villa. That is probably the only time I'm happy to play my Leeds players in the foreseeable future. Senesi at home against West Ham and Stack at home against Villa. But of course, I would be looking to improve that Stack spot and getting somebody else. So I need to also remember that a bench boost needs to be played at some point, and I want to try and improve this team to the best that I can. And also remembering that game week 12, Liverpool's fixtures turn good. Game week 13, Man City's fixtures look good. So I also don't want to be piling loads of transfers into my team just to enable a bench boost where I could very easily just walk away with 6 points of my bench boost, and then I don't have the opportunity to capitalize on the fixture swings in 12 and 13. So going into this week, it's all about Gyökeres's injury status. If he's available, I'm rolling my transfer. I am more than happy to roll it. If I look at the fixtures here, as you can see, the games I really don't have ownership in is going to be West Ham Burnley, but again, I don't really know what to own in that West Ham team. Chelsea against Wolves, of course, no João Pedro, and there is a world where I could buy him. Brentford Newcastle, again, is what it is. Forest Leeds, but I still don't understand who the Forest player is to own in that team, so why go buy the one that you don't know? So I'd be pretty content rolling my transfer in game week 11. If we get a world where Gyökeres is ruled out, and that would be the worst case scenario, but a very likely scenario it does seem, what I could do is a few things. One, I just look incredibly short term, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I buy João Pedro. I don't think I'm going to do this because I'm not brave enough, but João Pedro in addresses the situation for game week 11 and game week 12 because he's got Burnley away, which I think they will frustrate Chelsea, but I still think they could do okay in that fixture. Pedro could come in, but I really would not want to do that move. So ideally, Gyökeres does play. Otherwise, what I could do, if I really have to try and adapt this team, is downgrade Gyökeres to a Thiago for the next few weeks. That is also an option, but it doesn't massively help my team to the full extent. The big question mark I need to ask about my team is, do I want Bukayo Saka? Because if I do, it's very difficult for me to go there. I've got to do something like Gyökeres to Krupi Jr. and hope that he still gets some game time. I'll then have to upgrade Stack to Saka. And then I would have to free up the painful 0.1 million. And when I look at my team, I actually find it quite difficult to find the 0.1 million and sell a player in this squad. So it makes me think almost ignoring the Saka route is the better play. And even if Gyökeres is ruled out, maybe just allowing Senesi to come in as an auto sub and then allowing myself in game week 12 for free transfers and a better understanding of how to play my bench boost. It's really boring. It's not a nice way to play, but I almost hope that Sunderland frustrate Arsenal at times, which maybe they can, maybe they can't, and giving myself the flexibility in game week 12 to be really aggressive with a bench boost while also allowing myself the opportunity to move into Liverpool players and also Man City ones in game week 13 and beyond. So that's the current status I'm in. I would love to roll my transfer, but we got to wait on Gyökeres. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video. Looking at my Game Week 11 transfer plans. As I said, I'm waiting for that injury status on Gyökeres. I am praying that he will be available as he will resolve all of my issues. As always, if you have any questions, please do put them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. And if you did enjoy the video, drop a like and hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Have a great day. Cheers.